Susan, I'm thinking we are starting. Before we start, I just want to, I see Jennifer and Matt. I will be offering the French version of this session after. I'm just sharing this with you in case you want to join me for the French version of this. You can choose, do you prefer hearing me speaking in English with my beautiful French accent or talking in French with no accent? I'll leave it up to you.
Is it the same information twice?
What did you say? Sorry?
Is it the same information twice, but yours is in French, hers is in English?
Yes, the only difference too is we're going to look at the outcomes, the real-time reporting outcomes. So for the French, we're going to use the French outcome, the FLA outcome. So it's up to you, but I think you're already familiar with RTR, right? So I think one or the other. And I guess the discussion, Jennifer, for the French session, that's when we may hear more like specific stuff that's specific to FI. But yes, I'll let you and Matt decide. Okay, sounds good, Matt. This is nice to see so many faces. Thank you for joining us, everyone. So Susan, let's get the party going.
Yes, yes. That's a reference for something to come. All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our Literacy Links to Real-Time Reporting, or RTR. I'm Susan. I think I've met many of you before. I'm here with my partner, Julie. And we are going to offer some opportunities for conversation to have a bit of a deep dive with some of the ELA outcomes for real-time reporting and how they link to some of the things that you do with your students, and how we can plan for some of those links. So without further ado.
Someone, and I've shared the link of our Google slide. At the end, you will see that our Google slide has different links and jumping to different places. And I see Alison Turner is one of our participants. So our plan at the end of this is we've created a Google folder, including, sometimes it's just easier to access the folder. So we'll share this folder with the A team, with the online lead, so they can share that with all the participants.
Okay. You get going?
Yes.
All right.
So the first thing we want to do is, well, this morning is funny. I read this, I saw Jodie Carrington having that on her Facebook, and it's like, oh my God, this is such a good timing. Brave, doing something with your whole heart when you can predict the outcome. And I feel like this is the situation of many of you. We had an opportunity to talk with with a few online teachers, and we hear you, we feel you, we know from all the discussion, everyone is working more than ever in their life. And we know that you guys are doing the best you can. And that's the scary part sometimes, when you can predict if all the hard work you're doing is going to lead to where you're planning. So it's all about being brave, and we appreciate that from you guys, and we're respecting, and we're proud of you.
We thank you.
So just to do a quick check-in. So what we did is, and I'm going to, Susan, we're going to use a few tools that we're thinking that you guys can use with your students. So I'll put the link in the chat box. This is a Jamboard that you can use with your students, but we're going to ask you to do it now. Just take a few minutes. Here's the link for the Jamboard. And go to this link. What we're going to ask you is, at the bottom, you'll see there's Post-its. You can choose to change the name and put your name in it, or just create a nickname, whatever. Just this morning, and especially reading the comment from Nancy Cole, saying that she needs something stronger. Where do you feel, Nancy? Are you feeling good, okay, or bad? So just grab one of the Post-it, write your name on it, or change, and just drag your Post-it and where you're feeling now. Yes, Paula, you're right about the Jamboard. There's discussion with the tech team about the use of it. This is something we were just talking about it. You see, we're using a lot of Jamboard because I think it's a good platform, but we need to find a way to make it safe. So thank you, Paula, for your comment. As you guys are accessing, I don't see many people accessing the Jamboard. Is everyone able to click on the link that I put in the chat? I see Susan. Susan is doing fantastic. Good job, Susan. We must be in another one because there's a lot of replies. Oh, okay. Oh, maybe I give you the wrong one. Ah, yes.
Oh,
I think a bunch of us went through the link on the document that you gave us.
there were
Yes,
different links. Okay,
Susan, that's my mistake.
that's okay. I'll just grab the link and have a look here. Oopsie.
So Susan, I'm in the wrong. You will share the link in the chat room.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Okay, so lots of good people. Lots of okay. Joy, that's good. Good job, guys. And one thing so we just wanted to share quickly how you could use this with your students. Also, we want to acknowledge that this morning, your headspace might not be in about talking about RTR, and we're totally aware of it. We're sharing a lot of information with you this morning because, as I said earlier, we're so excited to have you. So excited. But we're aware that your brain might have the capacity to grab only one or two things that we're sharing with you. So, and that's totally okay. That's why we're going to share the folder with you at the end. But also know that we're here. We're not going anywhere. So in 2 weeks, when your headspace might be more around the stuff we're presenting, don't hesitate to reach out and we can have Zoom session with you guys.
Oopsie, sorry.
So this is another check-in that you could use with your student. Same idea where you got different fingers and you can ask your students, like, what's your understanding? How are you doing, with the different material that you're presenting? And at the bottom, same idea, you've got the post-it where kids can add their names. So we give you a link to that template as well.
Here we go. All right. So connecting a little bit to RTR, we have, I'm sorry, I can hear myself talking. I need to stop that. So we have here the outcomes that some of you may have seen before. This may also be brand new to you, and that's okay. These are outcomes that were developed from our program of studies in teacher groups with feedback led by Nancy Lake. And we wanted to present this because we've had a lot of questions about a scope and sequence for ELA and FLA. And in Rocky View, we haven't been referring to one or even encouraging or working toward the development of one because, as it's sort of written here, literacy instruction should be cyclical. And so we felt very strongly, we tried it a number of times to come up with this, but at the end of the day, it was very much, it was very difficult to do, to put some sort of sequence to the outcomes in the program of studies for you to follow through the year, because everything is iterative in language arts and responsive and cyclical. And so many of these outcomes will be infused in different areas of your balanced literacy instruction and will occur multiple times throughout the year as students build their skills and confidence in different areas of literacy.
Maybe Susan, before we go into it, so you can see in the title RTR outcomes, and I'll put the link in the chat box. This will give you access to RTR. Could everyone show us with a thumbs up if you're already familiar with, just to give us an idea of our audience. Who's already familiar with RTR? Thumbs up. Who's never done it? Thumbs down. Thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Thank you. That gave us a good idea. So there's the link. So today we're focusing mainly on the ELA. So Susan, go to the next one.
Oh, brother. So in this folder here, you'll find an overall document with all of the different outcomes for every subject listed by grade. And then there are also documents for each program of studies. And within those, you'll find more of a breakdown in terms of specific outcomes by grade level. So I'll click into, which one, Julie? Should we do the ELA?
Well, let's go to the next slide because that's, well, yes, if you want to.
Just to have this is just what was pictured on the slide, but just in greater depth and detail. And again, by grade level. Those are sort of our RTR outcomes for the year.
So before we get the party going, we, as Susan said, we struggle. We looked at all of the outcomes, like how can we make it, because we hear you that there's a need for that scope and sequence. We've heard that from different people. So we're saying, how can we make this that makes sense in literacy? So what we're going to do with you is we're going to do a little exercise where what we did is we put all the ELA outcomes, and then we're going to ask you to join that Jamboard. Susan, I'll let you share the link to the Jamboard, where we want you to think only in one component. So the only way that we could make it fit for us, that made sense with the knowledge we have with literacy and the framework of literacy in Rocky View, is trying to think how can those outcomes fit in a balanced literacy structure. So as a teacher, you're going to have your read aloud, your small group instruction, like your writing instruction. So today we're going to look at the RTR outcomes specific to independent reading. So if you can join us on that Jamboard to align with the same. Yes, thank you, Kim, for your comment. No, Heather, the statement for ELA haven't changed, but the folder that we shared with you are the one for 2021. So what we did at the beginning, so, oh yeah, I'm supposed to get the music. Susan never got the music. Okay, let's play the music. Everyone. Oh, I see a smile in Jennifer's face. She's saying it right. Just giving a few more minutes for everyone to join. So what we're going to ask in this Jamboard, as you can see at the bottom of the screen. So what we did is at the bottom in those three parts, we have listed all the ELA outcomes in three different categories. What you have on your page is us. We looked at the RVS Balanced Literacy Framework, and we decided to look just at independent reading. What you see in that box is, and we try to look at it, you guys, from an online perspective, what does independent reading looks like in your world for your students? So you can see different strategies that we have started. We will give you access to this document later on, and you'll see that it's a working document. We're adding lots of stuff to it. So this is just to get us started. When you're thinking on independent reading as a teacher, what outcomes relates to independent reading? So what we're going to ask you now, anyone who is wearing red, we're going to ask you to look at the pile. Susan is going to slide the green little thing. And anyone who's so we want you to look at the outcome 43B, read it and decide, does this fit in independent, as a teacher, effectively access and engage with presented information? Is this an outcome that you, as a teacher, you can see your students doing in the context of independent reading? If you think it is, then take that post-it and slide it where you see the outcomes column. And then anyone wearing their Friday pants, which will mean either PJs or leggings, whatever you're wearing, we're going to ask you to look at the pilot as a 52A. And finally, anyone else, we're going to ask you to look at the 43. Susan, do we want to go ahead with the breakout room, or we just stay as a big group?
I don't know.
Maybe because of time, let's stay maybe as a big.
I think it might be easier, yeah,
okay,
to stay together. So please take your mouse and drag those outcomes that apply to independent reading into that outcomes section. Anything that does not, just maybe leave around the border of the page. What I'll do as they move in here is I'll make them a bit smaller too, so that we have, a bit more room.
Sorry, I'm late to join.
Welcome, welcome.
Good. Nice to see you, Sally.
Hi, Joy.
Susan, I think it's your video or audio is giving feedback. Just if you're not talking, can you just mute? I just want to see if it makes a difference. I'm like the most distractible person in the world. Thank you.
So as you can see, as we're letting you work through this, there's quite a bit of outcomes that fit in independent reading. I'm looking at what is being left on the side. I'm going to share with you the process that Susan and I did. We, as I said, as an attempt to make a scope and sequence for you guys, and it didn't work. When we decided to use what made sense, what teachers are doing, so using a framework like balanced literacy. So all of you are having independent reading, providing independent reading time for your students. We did the same exercise as you. As we looked at all of the outcomes and tried to plug them in there, we realized that actually every single outcome could fit in all of them, in every single area. So even working in a group, I'm thinking, looking at independent working, this is something that as a teacher, you could do, you could assess as if the students are asked to read on their own, and then they have to make a mind map of the content of the book they read. But then as a group, if you, in your class you did a book study, a book club, any kids who read the same book independently can share that mind map, right? So you've got, and then so they can all share their own mind map. But then as a group, they might be asked to create a collective mind map of the main elements. So many of those elements can be done during independent reading.
Even with respect to some of the peer conferencing you may have some of your readers doing, or some of that read to a partner work would definitely fit into some of those more collaborative ELA outcomes.
Susan, do you want to move on to the next jam?
Yes, so we're gonna skip over page 2 and go right to page 3 of our jam at the top here. You just click over and start to think about independent reading with your students in the classroom or online. I think it will be helpful though to kind of put the lens into your online practice. How do you gather evidence of learning through independent reading, taking a look at observations, conversations, and products? And if you wouldn't mind just taking a few minutes to click over here to the sticky note. You can choose your color if you like, but then just sharing some of those strategies, some of those activities, tasks that you do with student, or yes, I see my blueprint is one of the first ones up there. That's awesome. Some of the platforms that you use for this as well, and just organize them by area, sort of products here, observations at the top, and then conversations sort of in the bottom right corner of the screen.
And Susan, maybe just to get the conversation going, because I know myself, I like to talk. We'll just open the floor. Just turn on your mic and shoot your ideas, and Susan and I can write them on Post-its. So what does it look like, thinking on the outcome that you just read, that we worked on? How can you gather now that evidence of learning? Anyone would like to share or talk? Writing prompts, listen to students, read, and then chat with them. Yeah. So that would be an observation. Student conferencing, yeah. Small group. Guided reading groups, yeah, for conversation. RAS-Kid recording, awesome. That could be a product.
Those responses to writing prompts as well, to write about what they've read, can really help to give an eye into their comprehension.
I'll put the link, Sally, because you joined late. I'll share the link of the presentation as well with you, because the history chat is gone.
A stamina log, I can speak to that unless the person who wrote that would like to. I can't see who added it.
I did, Heather.
Okay. Thanks, Heather.
No worries. I've been using this to set goals for independent reading for my kids. And then we kind of confer about the goals and how well it's going and the kinds of tricky times and things that they might be having while they're doing their independent reading time. And it's also a good way for me to see their progress, to see if they, how well they're doing. I'm hoping that they're being honest, but we have gone over like what it would look like at home to do independent reading or listening to reading or what have you. So I find those to be helpful.
Heather, I'm Denise. I'm the one that asked that. Is it something, did you name it a stamina log, or is that like a program that you found something somewhere, or and where do you have them do that? I'm a grade 8 teacher, so I'm in Moodle. I don't know what grade you are, but where do you have the kids do that?
So I just created like a graph for them to fill out in Google Sheets. So they're learning some math skills with it as well. And so that comes from like the Daily 5, our cafe. I used to do it in the classroom as well. We used to do stamina logs too. So I thought about how I might do it online. So where I have that housed is at top of our like list of things to do for the week in Google Classroom. I'm grade 3, sorry. I just keep the stamina log there. They don't hand it in until they reach their goal. So we set kind of a time goal as a class, and if kids were at that goal already, then I worked with them to increase their goal for that. Some of my kids are working on, they want to work on 45 minutes of independent reading time rather than the half an hour because they already were doing half an hour. So it was nice to be able to quickly go in there and just change their graph, and then they have a bunch of bars for every day. And then along with that, I also get them to fill out a reading log. So they're doing some math there and calculating how many pages that they've read during the day, that day, as well as like a brief summary. So we worked on summarizing. So 3 sentences, what did you read today? And or questions. So what questions do you have? What would you ask the author? Just 1 or 2 questions. And again, that is in Google Sheets. And I just keep those things at the top of our list and they go to it every day.
Okay, thank you.
And I see that, who's that? Tracy added the link, and I also had the link. We'll talk about that later, but we've got like a digital notebook, which is very similar. It's a place for students to gather that data, because that's what we want to encourage is volume. We want to see students reading more, but we want them to be aware that the more you read, the more you're developing your skills. So we want a place to be able to gather that information, but also through that from that stamina log is we want to see the progression. We want to keep track of how many books did they start, how many, like the volume of book read, but also it's a good way for us to observe what kind of books do they like reading, right? So it helps you as a teacher to put in their hands the books that they like. I love, and you've seen the link that I share, like how many books did you abandon? And I know even me as an adult, that's important to know. Like I've started all kinds of books about business. Yes, my intentions are there. I want to learn more about the business world, but every time I'm starting to read them, I get bored. And I've realized that books about that content is not the way for me to learn about it. I love blogs though. So I'm able to get that same knowledge through a different medium, through blog instead of a blog, right? So those digital notebooks always gives you such a good insight on your students as readers, who they are. Is there anyone else who'd like to share for this way to share this, to gather that information? Thank you, Tracy, for your comment. Okay, let's go back, Susan, to the presentation.
So these are, so what we shared with you in the first slide of the Jamboard was one of those components of balanced literacy. You can see that independent reading and writing are one of sort of 5 main areas that we look at through our literacy framework that promotes the gradual increase of independence, or some people also call that the gradual release of responsibility. And that sort of that independent piece is the you do of the I do, we do, you do process. And so what we've done is we've gone in, I know on that Jamboard slide, there was the component of balanced literacy, but then there were also some strategies for the virtual classroom. And if you click here.
But Susan, do you mind putting back the slide just for 1 second? Because I want to express the thought process that Susan and I went through, because I think it will help you as a teacher. What you see now, that graph, we had that on a big whiteboard at the office. We had all of the outcomes on Post-its, and we looked at all of the outcomes and said, okay, what could we fit in a read aloud? What could we fit in word work? What could we fit in shared reading? And what we realized and actually on another board, we had science, we had social studies, and we had math. And when we looked at all of our ELA outcomes, we realized that every single outcome could be taught and assessed throughout every single component of that balanced literacy. Because during your read aloud, you as a teacher, when Susan was talking about the I do, we do, you do, that read aloud, that's the time for you as the teacher to teach it. That's when you're doing your explicit instruction. That's when you're modeling what's happening in your head, right? That shared reading, that's when you would be doing that with the students. Again, we're talking about the same outcomes, but you're guiding them. The guided reading, that's when if I'm going to pick on Sally and Heather, because you're on my screen, if Heather and Sally did not get it from the read aloud, from my observation, if they're still not getting it, then I may decide to group them and work more intensively, but we're still talking about the same outcome, right? To when ideally, when they're reading on their own, they're applying what I taught. So that's kind of that process. What was interesting is, as I said, every single outcome, we were able to put them on the post, on the wall, except 6. Like 6 that was like specific to grammar and stuff. And Susan and I were saying, no, actually these, like, that's specific to word work and like to ELA. That's not something I could teach or assess in other content area. And even yesterday, when we reviewed that, we looked again at those 6 outcomes. It's like, no, actually I could totally, like when looking at word work, that would be part of my science. I want my students to be knowledgeable of the roots of the word, because that will help them getting the meaning of that. Like every single thing we did find that we could teach in all the component. That's it.
So what we've got, and I put this link in the chat for you guys, is that document where we've got strategies for the virtual classroom for each of those components that Julie just spoke to. And then you've got the gradual release of responsibility phase along the side, just as that reminder of how things will go from very much a modeling state to a state of independence for students. And just wanted to say too, that that's not always going to be a strictly linear progression. There may be some modeling, some work elbow to elbow with students in the shared or guided phases. And then off they go to try independently, and we might pull them back for some more of that we do elbow to elbow. There might be some more I do, some more modeling as part of that. And so it's very much a flow of based on your observations of how students are doing with that independent practice, what more they might need of some of that, those other phases of that, the release of independence or responsibility there.
Kim had a super good comment. With that in mind, like after we're saying that every single outcome can be taught, I think you guys as teacher, depending on the assignment or the thing that you might be teaching during your read aloud, like what's your main purpose, this is what will help you assign. Choose exactly which outcome you're going to choose for that assignment, right? So I guess the message we're trying to say is that pretty much every single outcome can be taught in the different component, but depending on what's your goal for that session, you will choose the outcomes that are specific. I'm hoping that I answered your question.
That's not to say that those other outcomes aren't happening in the background. Those other outcomes might be being addressed or giving students a chance to practice them, but you might choose 1 or 2 key outcomes to focus on that time, as Julie said, in or whatever your goals are for that lesson or for that time with those students.
So the document that we created now that you can see, this is a working document that we're hoping that will help you. We're going to add as much exemplar, as much stuff as we can for you to look at this, to help you. Like, okay, when we're talking about guided reading, what does it look like in a virtual world? Like obviously what we're sharing with you is just a big overview. We're planning to provide you many PL opportunities or Zoom where we can talk specifically to your own context. Okay, Julie, I want to do guided reading. Talk to me about this. Like we can definitely, what we're sharing you now is just the big stroke, the big picture.
And then each of the titles along the side, each of the component names in blue is linked to, I'll pull one of them up here, linked to its own Google Doc with links to examples, with links to resources. And these are working documents as well. These are things we hope to add to and build into over the course of the year and even the coming weeks. But we wanted to give you some small bites to sort of dig into in terms of the different components of literacy, some examples of activities you could do, some videos of what it could look like in a virtual setting as well. because we know that we've had a couple of questions about those kinds of things.
Hope as well, but we're hoping like exemplar of shared reading stuff. What we like, thank you for, I think it's Heather was sharing, was it Heather who was sharing the digital book log? Exactly in that document, that's where we're hoping to drag all the templates that we're getting from different people. So that'll be an easy, quick. So hopefully, Heather, you're okay if we add your template to that document. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. But as you come across things or you try things out that you find work really well, we would love to hear about them. And I know that that's an extra step for you guys. But if you're on Twitter and you're tweeting things out, we're trying to watch there all the time. We're trying to just kind of gain some perspective in terms of what's working well for you and what's still kind of tricky with respect to these different literacy activities and components.
So Denise, I'm not ignoring your question. We'll just move on to the next slide because this will be we can answer this early, but there's one more piece before we end at 11:30 that I want to make sure we get a chance to talk about. So we did a YouTube video. You'll be lucky to hear my beautiful French accent that's being recorded. My God. So just so you know, that feeling of having to record yourself, it's felt by many, many people, and me speaking my second language, tweeting that to the whole world. But hey, we're doing that for you guys, for the students. So we created a video. So again, when we're thinking just for today, we're using as an example independent reading. So as a teacher, where do I start? What outcome do I start with? How do I do this? So we have shared, so we've got our own YouTube channel. Again, this is just a work in progress. We're adding lots of stuff to it. You will see this video we created with the numeracy team. What does it look like pre-assessment in literacy in numeracy? So on the slide that Susan is showing, and I'm very happy, Heather, you started talking about the book log and stuff, because on that slide, we are giving you access to different reading inventory, reading identity, reading survey that you can do with your students. So when you go on the slide, and maybe what I'll do is I'll share the link of this whole presentation again, just to make sure, since people join us after. These are example. I'm not sure, Susan, do you want to click on a few of them to share with them? So the idea of us, like as a teacher, if I need to start assessing my students before I start doing the assessment, I want to know who they are as reader. How often do they read? Like that information is so important, especially not knowing what happened in their home since March, right? So this is such a good, and I can tell you, like my boys, I've got two boys who were really good readers. We haven't read much because their mind was not into reading. So as a teacher, this is super important to gather that information so you can plan your instruction. So this is one sample that we're giving you.
And just to say, this is one part of that, just kind of tying to the video of that pre-assessment that you can do in these early weeks with your students. Some people have been asking, you know, how do I do a running record, or how can I start to gather some data about my readers? This is a really good place to start. A little bit less formal, but still really important data for you to have access to. And so I think it takes a little bit of the pressure off of that sort of demand for formal assessment. You're doing some assessment in these activities. It's just a little bit more qualitative, the data that you're going to get, and it's going to really help you to get to know who your students are, who your readers are, what their preferences are.
Yes, as
Denise, yeah.
Yes, Denise, but not now. Or does that depend on your school? You know, you're such on a different context. If one of your administrator asks you, requires you to do a running record, please share our emails with them and we'll have a conversation. You guys are such in a different world now.
Yeah.
We teachers now should not be doing a formal running record. Before we're doing that, there's so much more information we need to gather. However, as a teacher, you want to know who they are as readers. So on the slide, as you can see, first, find out who they are using some of those documents that was shared. What I would do as a teacher, the next step would be like during your one-on-one conference with your students in a Zoom, I would ask them, okay, buddy, go grab a book, one of your favorite book. Can you read me a short passage and I will take some notes. So you as a teacher, if you're good with running record, do an informal running record, right? On the blank, just listen to them. Really what you want to listen for is decoding. Can they decode? What's their fluency? Are they self-monitoring? How are they attacking the word? If they're getting a wrong word, are they skipping? Are they changing that word for different, like, what are they doing as a reader? Are they self-correcting? Are they aware that they are making mistakes, right? Like, so you're going to take notes, and I would definitely record that little short passage. So you keep that as an observation, right? Like going back to that triangulation. Right. And then after you get them to listen, then I would ask them for retell. Buddy, tell me again, tell me about what you read. And I would ask them a few prompting questions. Now, those prompting questions and everything that I'm telling you, I was hesitant in sharing with you the running record, because I don't want to share the idea that you need to do a running record. No, you don't. However, the questions, the prompting, I'm trying to find a form now to pump it in the thing. It's a good way to get those prompting questions that you're looking for, right? But again, the idea is not to do a formal running record. It's just to get that quick idea of what's the main, like you want to be able to identify, Sally, I just heard you reading. I'm so proud of you. You struggle with a few words, but you were able to use some strategy. So I know as a reader that you're self-monitoring your reading. Keep working on this. However, your retell was not very sequential. You were going all around. So don't worry. This is what we will be working on, right? So at the end of that quick, you want to be able to share something good and a little thing that you will be working on. Same with I know we've got a few middle school teachers. You know, you're not necessarily looking for the decoding, but you listening to your students reading, you will be working on the fluency, but you'll be focusing more on the comprehension question. Does that make sense? Which is a word that they have memorized. I think I may have, it could be that, Sally. Yeah, you're right. I think for that first time, it's just a quick check, right? So just and it could be any book. It could be even a book that's way too hard, a book that they have from home, but like, it doesn't matter. You just want to get that little insight, like, what do you do as a reader? Susan, I'll let you talk as I will try to grab the link to the running record and the comprehension. But again, the point is we're not sending the message to do those formal assessment now.
I was just going to, someone was asking about how to get that copy of the reading survey to share with their students. Julie and I also have a folder of these that we will be sharing with your leads that we hope they'll pass along to you. But if you're wanting to get a copy of one of these documents for yourself, you just follow the link. These are view-only documents just to avoid them being edited or altered. But once you make your own copy of them by going File, and then make a copy, that will copy to your Google Drive. And from there you can edit the questions, you can change the preamble at the top if you want to, and even build onto this if there are things that are not here that you'd like to ask your students.
So just looking at the time, yes. So our exit pass would be, is there 3 things? And Susan, there's only 1 minute, so maybe we won't get you to do it. But again, you've got access to that Jamboard. Our ask was, is there 3 things that resonated with you? 3 things that you will take and be able to do in your class next year. Oh, Sally, poor Sally, I see your face. That's good, Sally. That's good feedback. I know it's probably overwhelming. No, don't turn off your camera. Don't turn off your camera. This is normal. And as I said, we said that at the beginning, if you're able to leave with one thing, and even if it's one of those reading survey that you're going to do next week, yay, that's it. We're happy with that, right? So take it slow and we're here for you. The link that you can see at the bottom, all templates came from here. We're linked to a whole pile of other Jamboard template that could be useful. Yes, I see. And thank you, Sally. Love your comment. You have done so many assessments, but no teaching yet. So right away, this is when I say, stop. You need to go back to your why. Why are you assessing? You're not assessing just to get, like you need to take that assessment to do stuff. So right away, slow down and stop. That's your, yeah, perfect. I'm happy that you're aware of that, because this is sometimes we get wrapped up and I need to assess, but then you're wasting so much time and not doing anything. And we need to go back to the purpose of assessing. It's to guide our instruction, right? So slow down. Is there any questions that we haven't answered or anything circling in your head? If anyone, because I know it's 11:30, if anyone is leaving now, as we said, feel free to send us email. We can do one-on-one or join your cohort and brainstorm how this makes sense. Like, we're aware that we're giving lots of information in your questions. You may not have those specific questions now with you, but feel free. This is our job. This is what we're here for.
And don't feel like you need to take in all of this all at once. Please choose one small bite that makes sense to you, and take that and move forward. And we're here to be a part of that if that's helpful to you. And maybe that's in a couple weeks, or maybe that's right away, but please know that we're here and we're just an email away. Otherwise, I think happy Friday. Please, a couple things on our slide here. We're both on Twitter if you want to follow us. I'm YoTeach123. We'll change that for the next.
Oh, sorry, Susan.
But you guys are, just going back to the Jody Carrington, you guys are doing such a wonderful job, and thank you, and continue to be courageous in this uncharted frontier, because we just so appreciate the work that you're doing, and your students and families do as well.
And you're not alone. Whenever you feel like crying or you're so depressed, email us. We can cry together and we can help you. After you cry, after you've got your good cry out, we can take all the information and help you planning and designing that instruction. This is our job. We're there for, okay? Good, thank you, Heather. I feel energized. So see, no one needed their vodka and their coffee this morning. Got this, we got you, people, we got you.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.